into rental housing. That was not a sustainable ratio, and we're going to move back towards a more sustainable ratio in the decade ahead. So, is that okay? Commercial property, I choke on that. But if we look at the different ones, we see each one has its own challenges and opportunities.
Barton, in reference to your productivity graph, we have a lot of people here who have a busy day. We'll probably make this the last question for you guys. So this will be a good one.
How about two questions?
Oh, we'll let you answer.
I was wondering if part of the trade deficit problem, isn't that to a great extent related to the fact that our importing of foreign oil, foreign energy, that's not really a cyclical problem. It's a I'm just curious what your thought is about that. That's going to be a huge negative. It seems forever into the future.
Well, the answer is no. If you take, I'm not saying that the importation of energy and oil isn't part of our deficit, but it really is a minor part. The bottom line is, in a world in which we have our savings rate up, and we're not borrowing abroad, then we may have a trade deficit with the Middle East and a trade surplus with the rest of the world. It can be balanced. Oil by itself is not the answer. The fact of the matter is that half of our trade deficit is China. And while we can be critical of China, it's my personal belief we cannot go to China and demand that they appreciate the yuan without us saying, and here's what we'll do, and that is we'll stop borrowing abroad. And think about the advantage that has to the Chinese. Appreciating the yuan is going to cause all their denominated dollar assets, which they have several trillion of, to lose value. But if we stop borrowing abroad, those assets will hold up their value much better than if we continue to flood the world markets with our debt. So that's much more important than any oil connection, and we can continue to import. I'm absolutely in favor, for different reasons, to eliminate foreign imports of oil. But we can continue to import oil from abroad and have a balanced trade deficit. Okay, number two. Then we quit.
Number two, unrelated. I was curious if you thought that if the Bush tax policies are not extended, if that big wad of cash that will not be spent on investment and consumer part of the economy, if you thought that would have a short to midterm effect on the recovery as it goes forward.
There's no question, I think, that I'd be comfortable extending the Bush tax cuts across the board for one more year, because I think the economy still needs a little bit more push. But the bottom line is we cannot allow the deficit to continue growing. We were talking earlier today, a group of us, about Tea Party movement. And one of the questions I said is, help me to understand why the reports are that somewhere between 55 and 65% of the Tea Partiers are retired. How can that be? So, if you understand that of the federal budget, we're talking about big government, but of the federal budget, 67% of the federal budget is transfer payments. 55% of that is Social Security, Medicare, Medicaid, federal retirement programs. We've got to be willing to cut those things, or take what I argued in the previous end of the curve, take a more balanced approach. We need to universally, collectively bear the burden. If we bear the burden, we're talking about maybe a 5 or 10% hit to you and I individually. That's not the game we're playing. The game we're playing is that I want you to bear the burden, not me. As long as we play that game, then and if I can convince enough congressmen to go along with me, your marginal tax rate is going to go to 100%. But if I can if we can all bear the burden, evenly, the burden is not that great. The deficit, the long-term deficit, not the current deficit, long-term deficit of about $700 billion. That, by the way, is a long-term deficit that's associated with the assumption is that the economy will ever recover. So all of the revenues that we've been generating, that we've lost during this recession, will have to come back. And we've still got a $700 billion deficit. How are we going to close that gap? And I will tell you there is no way on earth that gap can be closed without increasing taxes. But to increase taxes, it needs to be fair, it needs to be equitable, and it needs not to affect strongly any single sector, because all taxes are distorting. If we raise marginal income taxes on people, we start decreasing incentives. We cannot increase business taxes. We cannot. I mean,
35% now.
We're gonna. Businesses now are already fleeing abroad because taxes are higher here on businesses than other places in the world. So we've got to come up with a tax scheme that is broad, and it doesn't burden any one sector, any one group. We all share. Lord, what a job. And, whether the politicians are up to that task, I don't know.
I think we'll bring this to a close, and I think at this point we're going to let Barton decide or select who's headed to Calistoga and California, which was the door prize involved with this. In case anybody no one needed an incentive to come, but we thought it'd be fun to just give away something nice.
Yeah, but I have a question.
You're not in there. I heard the question.
You see the problem with incentives? I have no incentives.
I knew the question, and you're not in there. Okay, I'm sorry.
Oh, my.
Pick someone, though.
Okay.
Pick a lucky person.
Who's got deep pockets that he's willing to offer a prize?
Yeah. It's for more than one person, so they can help you.
Esther Hope. Esther, you can talk to me afterwards.
You can make a deal. I appreciate everyone coming. Thank you. This is an ongoing effort on the part of PRS, which is Jackson, Mississippi-based group that we're a part of, to engage the community and be more a part of it. We're a third-party service provider, so if you need help with your properties, call us. I know there's a lot of competing firms in here, but call us instead. We'll solve your real estate problems, mainly because Parkway at present, with their 15-building portfolio in Houston, their largest presence, is at 95% leased and stabilized. So there's no threat of compete or conflict of interest from us. We're already full, and we'd like to fill your buildings as well. So using the same techniques and talent. Thank you for coming, and we'll see you next year, hopefully.
Thank you for coming.